Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. Sorry, we are a bit delayed. We are 5 minutes late. I'm Léa Dehaut. I'm a communication analyst in the TOA-NDP team at ENTSO-E. I have with me Maria Clara Calaretta.
Hello. Hello to everyone.
And we also have on the line from the TOA-NDP study team, André Vogt and Jérémy Dubois, to answer your questions later on.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, André. So now let's take a look at the agenda. So first, I will quickly go through an overview of the TOA-NDP process. Then we'll look at the application process more in details. We'll take a look at the application platform. And finally, we'll take questions. I will try to keep as much time as possible for questions, because I expect there will be a lot. Probably some of you are already familiar with this, but maybe for the new ones. So this is really an overview of the process, the TOA-NDP process, and how it relates to the PCI process led by the European Commission. So right now we are finalizing the scenarios. We are about to start the collection of projects, of both in Q4 2019. Then the next step is the identification of system needs, and the cost-benefit analysis comes last, planned for release in Q3 2020. Then the outcome of the TOA-NDP process, the CBA results, they feed into the PCI process, which is not led by ENTSO-E, but by the European Commission. That's important to keep in mind. Just to give you an idea of what I mean by scenarios and system needs. So you can see here the three components of the process, just in a nutshell. So the draft scenarios report is planned for release in November, so in just a few weeks for consultation. Then the system needs, so they really look at how to fit the system to the features described in the scenarios. System needs for 2040 are planned for release in April 2020. And then the last step in the TOA-NDP process is the assessment of the projects, considering the scenarios and the system needs. And here is the timeline for the TOA-NDP 2020 as it stands today. So right now in October, we're about to open the submission window. As I said, the scenarios will be published for consultation in a few weeks in early November. Then after the submission window, we'll start the cost-benefit analysis, so starting from January to July. In April, we'll release the system needs for 2040, and this system needs will be used to inform a second submission window, and I will come back more in details on this later on. Then we will publish the draft CBA results. Currently, it's planned for release in mid-August, so for consultation. Of course, these will be shared with project promoters before we publish them for consultation. This is also specified in the guideline. Then after the consultation, so we take into account the comments received. The consultation is planned to last until approximately end of September. So we look at the comments, we edit the TOA-NDP, and we share with Acer for their opinion in October. And in October around October is also planned to start the PCI process by the European Commission. Then Acer delivers an official opinion on the TOA-NDP expected in early 2021. Based on this opinion, we implement Acer's comments, and we release the final version by mid-2021. So that was just an overview of the process. Now to get really in detail about the timeline that really concerns project promoters. So you might have seen these slides already. They are available on ENTSO-E's website, but now I will try to really go in detail and to really make it clear on what will happen when. So we published the final version of the guidance for applicants in end of September. Now the next step is the opening of the submission window. So we announced previously mid-October, so now the confirmed date is the 22nd of October until the 15th of November. You might have seen my email. I sent an email on Friday to all project promoters, or all the promoters we have contacts for. And we circulated and we published also online a copy of the submission form. So all the fields that you will see in the submission forms, you have received that already. And if not, you can also find them on ENTSO-E's website. And don't hesitate to contact me if you cannot find the document. So that should really help you to prepare for your application. At the end of the submission window, there will be the review application period. So basically, we will look at all applications and check whether they fit the administrative and technical criteria. A few days after the 15th of November, we will, based on how many applications there are and we need to assess the workload, we will tell you by this date, there won't be any further change possible. So that's the data freeze date that you can see at the bottom. And we will communicate this date a few days after November 15th. In between the end of the submission window and the data freeze date, if you spot errors in your application, you will be able to correct them. So you will just have to contact us. But after the data freeze date, there won't be any more changes possible to your application.
Especially for the CBA assessment.
Yes, exactly. For the CBA assessment, the data will not change after this date. So once we've received all applications and assessed all of them, we will communicate individually to each project whether they're accepted or rejected. If they're rejected, of course, we'll provide a justification. And we'll also publish on our website the list of projects that were accepted and the list of projects that were rejected with a reason for the rejection. There is an appeal process in case of rejection. So the main steps are detailed here. So basically, from the day when we notify the rejection, you have 10 working days to appeal, let's say, so to let us know that you would like to go to a hearing. So the hearing takes place in front of the Network Development Stakeholder Group. So it's a group composed of stakeholders with DEC and Acer as observer member. This group can only provide a recommendation to ENTSO-E, and then ENTSO-E will take into account this recommendation and decide whether to change the rejection decision or to confirm it. And so this overall process could take a few weeks, I think up to 2 months. Then there is a second phase for projects who have been selected, is that we will contact you to collect additional information. So the exact list of additional information we will ask, we will share it later on. There is already a short list in the guidance, but you can see here it's actually specified here. To provide some information about this second collection of information, we will organize workshops. I think we really want to have physical workshops because I think we had good feedback of the ones we did last year. So we intend to proceed in about the same way. So early in 2020, we'll collect your views on where we should hold these workshops, and then we will have a few, I don't know how many, but we'll have several workshops in Brussels or elsewhere. This is still to be seen. And this would be to really explain in detail what we ask as additional information, what information we will publish in the project sheets, and to really answer as many questions as possible.
And also, as soon as we will have a project sheet scheme template, you will be also informed, and this can be expected by the first months of the year, so quite in advance before we ask you for input. So the input window, maybe it's in March, so in the spring period, but you will be informed months in advance in order to prepare for this input.
Exactly. So now we are reviewing the project sheets. So I mean, in the TMDP 2018, we want to kind of improve the way the information is presented to make them easier to read. So we will share, we will circulate our ideas once they're a bit more close to final. Let's say, so expect in February 2020. So in June, July, as the CBA result, the draft CBA results become available, we will communicate to you. The plan for now is to communicate them in 2 batches. So I understand that last year there were several communications of the results. So now we want to group this communication. So the first one would be on one scenario, then on other scenarios, so to avoid, because it can be also confusing when we share information several times.
Yeah, and we commit to give you the results 2 weeks before we publish anyway the project sheets online.
Exactly, this is also specified in the guidance, so we will have at least 2 weeks notice. So then in August 2020, we will publish the project sheets, so including the results of the CBA as part of the TMDP 2020 package. So the package will contain these project sheets, but also a report, several reports actually, explaining the results and the methodology. And this is shared for consultation and then later on submitted to ACER. Planned workshops and webinars we have. So there will be a first either a webinar or a workshop. This is not decided yet, but already as soon as December or January. So before the list of accepted projects is final, because we want to inform you as soon as possible on the information we'll need later on, especially because you might have to need to run studies.
Yes. So according to our plan, next week we will be able to publish the draft CBA 3. You will see that in this draft CBA 3 we intend to provide the possibility for some indicator to compute them at the project level, so which are called, it's something that you can recall if you were in TYNDP 2018 as the missing benefits. Now it has been streamlined and reviewed, and some of these benefits have been now belong to the CBA 3. Some of them will be now are already planned to be computed at the pan-European level, so by ENTSO-E, but there are few of them that might be still subject to your computation. And in order to allow you to do it and to provide the input by the agreed timeline, we want to anyway give you the most of the information, the best of information in January to guide you in this kind of submission.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the first workshop, and the second round of workshops, as I said also earlier, is workshop during the additional information window to really explain as much as possible, so that you are really clear on what is expected and what is needed to fill in the project sheets. And on this workshop, I expect we can maybe share more information in January, February. In the guidance, we foresee also a submission window, a second one, reserved for future projects. So it would open only after we publish the identification of system needs 2040, so in early April. And it is reserved for projects that satisfy these 3 criteria. So they have to be under consideration. Okay, this is a mistake, this is consideration, not construction. They need to be planned for commissioning after 2035. and the need to address system needs identified in the IOSM 2040 that will be released in April. So these are really strict conditions. So
it's important to say that it doesn't mean that project under consideration and to be commissioned after 2035 cannot be submitted already now. If you already have identified an opportunity for a project that is under consideration to be commissioned after 2035, it is very much welcome to submit the project now in the first window, as it will allow us to properly manage everything. But of course, if from the system needs if you find a project that was not in your plan, but it can be found from the studying of the ISN report, then this is the second window is the right place to submit this project.
Exactly. So if you know of the project now, that means it has to be submitted in this coming submission window in October. This is really only for projects that you would potentially you would only realize that they could be done after we submit the IOSM. So if you know of a project right now, just don't wait.
Yes.
So this is the planned process for the second submission window for future projects. So it's really similar to the one for the main submission window. There is also a review process, like a kind of an appeal process. We'll share the CBA results, and we publish the CBA results at the same time as the results for the other projects, so in August. So now really more like practical information. So application takes place via an online platform. To access this platform, you need credentials. So if you took part in past UNDPs, normally you should already have access. You may have forgotten your login or your password. So we'll share a link on the 22nd. When you go to this link, you will have to enter your login, and your login should be in this format, your ANSOE / the first letter of your surname and your last name. So like the example I put underneath, and there should be a link to reset your password. I just specify this here because this is one of the most common difficulties that people encounter when trying to log in. Then if you weren't in any past UNDP, please just contact us and we'll get you credentials. And so, as I said, I shared on Friday with you a Word version of the submission forms. So we would appreciate if you can already check them, and if ever anything is unclear, we try to detail as much as possible, but I think this is a living document. So when we receive questions from you, we will also complete this practical guide, and to really, so that you have as much information as possible on what is expected in each form. Because it's not always so easy for us to know, like, if there are if something is unclear, so we really rely on your feedback for that. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is log in to the...
I don't know if there are some questions already from this time being.
No, I don't see any questions so far. I will just quickly log in to the online platform and see if I can share my screen. So just need 2 minutes. Just to give you an idea, if you haven't been in any UNDP, to give you an idea of what we mean when we talk about the online platform. All right, so this is the field you will see when you want to submit a new transmission project. The form for storage is really similar to this one. So here the version you see is not the final one because we are still implementing a few changes. in particular so that it's consistent with the guidance. But just to go quickly, I mean, we cannot really go in detail now because I would like to reserve time for your questions. So you have administrative criteria on one tab, then data for technical investments.
Maybe it's word for transmission projects. You can cluster them per investment. So,
exactly.
Or even if you have only one project with one investment only, you anyway need to add a new investment in order to provide.
Create your investments and then explain in the box here why they are clustered into one project.
But even if you have one investment only, you have any way to create it. Otherwise, the fields to provide won't appear. This is a question that we received sometimes.
Okay. Well, I mean, I expect we'll have to maybe some questions anyway. Okay, I'll just go back to my slides. Okay, so now we will take questions. So you can either send them in written form. You see there is a field for questions at the bottom of the GoToWebinar tool. Or
you can raise the hand.
If you prefer, you can raise your hand. There is a little hand icon normally on the left-hand side. And if I see a hand raised, I will unmute you. So you need to have a microphone at hand. Maybe we give you like a few minutes to prepare questions, like 5 minutes, and we come back in 5 minutes. Let's do that. Okay, so back in 5. Okay, let's start taking questions. I see one question from Michael, but I cannot unmute you, Michael, because you need to enter your PIN. So, okay, I just sent you your PIN, so we'll be able to take your questions as soon as you enter it. So now I see written questions. What happens if a project has 2 project promoters? One wants to be in the TUNDP and the other doesn't. My advice would be that you should, the 2 promoters should agree to apply. In my view, I don't think we've had this case in the past, but yeah, I can just advise you to somehow reach an agreement on, on the application. I don't see any other hands raised.
Maybe is everything clear to you on even some content of the guideline for project application? All the fields on all the administrative criteria and technical criteria, are they clear to you? So you will be anyway ready next week to start input everything, or I think this would be a good occasion because the question raised here can be made available to all the other promoters instead of a bilateral exchange of email.
Okay, I see another question related to the category that the project promoter belongs to.
Mm-hmm.
If a promoter is a subsidiary belonging to a TSO. I guess we need to check if we've had this case in the past. I guess the key criteria, it has to be unbundled.
Mm-hmm.
So if it belongs to it, I guess it depends from the specific case. In this specific case, I would like to ask you to please send me your question with a bit more detail by email, so we can.
Yeah. What is the relationship with the TSO? If you have if you are anyway a private kind of initiative, then you might be considered as a third-party promoter, and it applies the same rule third-party promoter have, and they can anyway submit their project, but they maybe don't fall into category A.
Okay, another question on the documentation for the criteria on unbundling. Okay, so this is the case where you need to request exemption. I think the conditions regarding the exemption, they are set in the regulation. So 2019-943, Article 63. And I think it sets precisely, how the exemption process works and who, I guess it's to national authorities, but to be checked, but it really sets the details. So for this one, yeah, you need to provide to us a letter signed by your representative stating that you have applied for exemption, that you intend to apply for exemption, and if you applied already, detailing the steps that you already took. But for the rest, yeah, please just refer to the regulation. Another question, how can we be sure that all necessary information documentation are on the SharePoint, so have been shared? And you ask with regard to this statement that failure to provide the information to meet the criteria will result in the project not being included. So when we assess applications and we find that something is missing, we will contact you to ask for this information. And it's only if you don't provide the information by the deadline that then we will consider that you didn't provide it.
The thing also that the platform should be set such that if you miss some processes that are necessary, you can't press submit. So you will have some red box of missing information. Then anyway, we need to check for consistency of the input provided, because you can put an input just to submit, but this input doesn't make any sense. So you will be requested at some point you will receive anyway a communication on what has been frozen, and you will have access to the platform, so you will see what are the inputs provided. So there is no extra space for these kind of input for the promoter point of view. Of course, this information will be then downloaded and used by ENTSO-E for the purpose of the project. But the promoter can be sure that once we will have the review and we will freeze the data, this will be the one used.
Yeah.
I don't know if it answered the question.
I think. Anyway, if ever we don't answer completely your question or you would like more information, please don't hesitate to write to me. My email address will be on the last slide. So another one, if promoters are updating the pre-filled data taken from 2018, will there be a version manager? So the data that is in the 2018 2NDP is frozen. So we have two separate platforms. Now we have one platform for the 2018 and the data there has not changed. And the platform for the 2020, that's where we show pre-filled data based on what we have currently available. So I don't know if this is your concern, but I mean, in my view, we don't really need a version control because these are two different TONDPs, two different data sets.
But they were asked to check the data to confirm them, so you still have to anyway submit, and maybe there will be a transfer of data from 2018 to the platform so they can see pre-filled information.
Exactly. When you will open the form, if you had a project in 2018, you will see the same data, or as you also updated it in July, because we had a data pre-collection phase there, you will see the data that you updated there.
Yeah, and then you have any way to review them and to submit the project. Otherwise, the fact that you have checked the data in July doesn't necessarily imply that you have submitted 41DP.
Yeah. Yeah, so you will need to hit the submit button. It's important. Is it possible for an undertaking to fulfill the criteria of technical expertise if there are no references from relevant projects? Is it possible to declare somehow the intention of employing subcontractors who have the expertise?
I think it is necessary that the technical data are provided by the deadline. If you have a particular issue, you can contact us and we can try to support you in explaining what kind of data we ask.
I think the question is really more about not this criteria, the administrative one, on the technical capacity of the promoter. So they have to certify that they have, this technical.
I think they can have subcontractors.
Okay, so it's okay to have subcontractors,
but you need to prove it.
Yeah, so you need somehow to demonstrate then the expertise of these subcontractors and that these are really your subcontractors. So any document you can provide in that respect. If we have a project that consists of two steps, cross-border investment and internal investment, is it better to report that as a single project or as two separate projects? It might be a question for if it's related to the CBA results, maybe it's more for the study team to answer that one.
No, it's a matter of what if the need for cluster means that the project, one of the other, doesn't fulfill the scope of each of the investment if they are not built all. So if you have investment A and in investment B, you need to cluster them if investment A doesn't provide the desired scope, if investment B is also not commissioned. But I can maybe, I would like to, if you give me 1 minute, I can maybe provide you the definition of clustering in the CBA2. Although there will be a CBA3 soon, it's now the reference we can use for, just 1 second. Okay, take it forward. So it's It's really when one investment cannot perform its intended function without the realization of another investment. So you really need to investigate if the internal project is really needed in order to realize the cross-border capacity, then you should cluster it together. But we cannot recommend you to do one or the other as a strategy, let's say. Is only if you really see that only by clustering them together, each of the investment deliver the results for which they will be commissioned, let's say.
Okay, thank you. A question from Michael. When is the final deadline to change the project information and data for the first window? Maybe I can go back to the timeline for that one. So
it depends on the review process.
Yeah, it depends also on how much time we take for the application review. So after we close the submission window on the November 15th, we will assess based on the number of applications how much time we need. Now we estimate we need 20 working days to assess applications. During this estimate of 20 working days, if you spot errors in your application, we can still make corrections. So shortly after the 15th of November, once we have assessed the work needed, we will give you a final date, after which date there won't be any more changes possible for CBA purposes. So to sum up, my answer is we cannot give you a specific date now, but 20 working days after the 15th of November is around the 16th of December.
And of course, you should highlight it to us because the review process is ongoing. And if we have reviewed your project, but you are changing, we need to come back to it and check what has been the factual change. But maybe once the application period will be over, you will receive a communication with these dates.
Yes.
And we will have a final list of candidates for T1DP. So it will be even easier to streamline the communication, as now we have only the old list of promoters. Now we are waiting for the new candidates also.
Another question: can a project in the first window shift in the second window to the status future projects?
I think it depends on when it's commissioned, because we see also future projects in the first window. There are even there the guideline foresee that there are a light approach for a very future project also submitted in the first window. So I think what has changed, it can be that maybe the second window received only one scenario assessment, while the future project of the first window received only market assessments with all the scenario.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. But in any case, we encourage you to apply now in the first window and not wait for the second one. In any case,
and also it's a little bit, if you are able already to submit, why should you shift it to the second window to have a reduction of the CBA assessment? It sounds unusual, maybe, because you already know about this project, so there is no reason why you should use the second window to shift your project to that window. So yes, I think more or less the treatment is similar for very future projects. So the commissioning date there is the leading information that shifts you from a classic CBA assessment project to a future project.
Okay. Can the statutes of the registered undertaking and balance sheets documents be in other language than English? No, because we do not have the capacity to check documents in any other language than English in the T1DP team. So this is really a resource question. We have to say no to that. It's specified in the guideline that all documentations must be in English, So please only share documents in English.
Maybe, but if they have approved things only in their national language, you should provide a translation.
Yeah, translation. Then,
You can.
We need something in English
Yes,
to work
if you
with,
don't
because,
have it, the stamp of the CEO, we can understand. You can provide it, but the translation is up to you to
exactly.
To provide, because we don't know all the European languages.
Exactly. What do you mean with the term investment? Is it defined in the CBA methodology?
Let me see. It should be. Investment. Yes, it's a definition is already provided in the CBA too, that you can find in TYNDP page. There is a separate sub website within the TYNDP website. Anyway, I can read you the definition we have here. Is an investment is defined as the smallest set of assets that together can be used to transmit electric power and that effectively add capacity to the transmission infrastructure. An example of an investment is a new circuit and the necessary terminal equipment and any associated transformers. Anyway, if you are new to the project, to the process, I would recommend not only to have a view on the CBA too, but maybe La can anyway send it the link,
I will share the link.
To the people that have participated today or have registered for today. I would also recommend to have a view on the project sheets of transmission projects, for example, but also storage, if you're a storage promoter, of TYNDP 2018, because there you have a very nice, very several example of how a project is clustered in different investments. And so you can realize which kind of component is sufficient to be labeled as an investment instead of a together with a project.
Okay, I hope this answers your question. Next one, so regarding the additional criteria I on studies, is an email communication sufficient, or should each TSO sign a letter acknowledging that all relevant information has been delivered? So what's important there is that you prove that you have delivered all the information that allow the TSO to perform the study. So I would say that you should provide us with any document. It can be an email, it can be a letter, but it has to come from the TSO and it has to confirm that you provide everything they needed. So it's not so much about the format, but really about the content. So like formal letter or email, in my view, both are okay. If the project connects two countries, one of which is not in the EU area, should both TSO confirm, or both TSO, or only the TSO that is in the ENSOI area?
I think it would be necessary anyway to have the other TSO agreed on your application. I think this is a matter of something that we recommend anyway. Whoever is involved in a project should agree to apply. But I think it applies for the TSO.
Yeah.
Within the.
I mean, in general, the guidance criteria, when criteria refer to TSO, it's ENSOI TSO. But in this case, I assume you will need both TSO to perform the study somehow. So I guess you will need to contact both of them. Could you please explain again the difference between the two submission windows?
Okay, yes.
So the main submission window, October-November, is for every project. There are no conditions. The second submission window in April has really, really strict criteria. So projects must be under consideration. They must have a commissioning date after 2035, and they must address system needs that are identified in the System Needs Report 2040 that will be released in April. So it's a really selected set of projects.
Yeah.
So that's the main difference.
But you can submit for very future project in the first window.
Yes, exactly.
If you already know them, if you already have a plan for them, if you think they should be in the TYNDP, you can submit for future project to be commissioned even after 2035 under consideration. You can submit there. So the very first window is the one that opens to all type of project, all status, and all type of commissioning year.
Yeah.
Of
So
course, to be reasonable. I mean, don't submit for 2050.
So the key difference between the two windows really is that in the second, you need to answer the new system needs that will be in the IOSN report in April. So that's really the main difference. But if you know a project now, just submit it now. It won't change anything.
And maybe it should be clarified that once you have submitted for the first window, the second window cannot be used eventually if you are discarded from the first window. The second window, unless you really find a link with the IOSN, is not to try again. Let's say you try very well on the first window, you are included hopefully in the TYNDP, and this will lead to the best of the let's say outcome for your project. Because the second window will be anyway linked to the IOSN.
Exactly. So in technical criteria, assessment of the increase in the transfer capacity. We only have a preliminary estimation, and we expect to end up with a more accurate estimation in the following months. Is it possible to change this parameter after acceptance in the TYNDP? So I assume you mean after acceptance in the TYNDP and before the next PCI process.
So there are two milestones here. Once, of course, you will provide what is your best knowledge now. So we expect that from you. And then anyway, this kind of input will be anyway verified by our ENTSO-E study team. In order to be sure that the NTC are the ones that are actually realized in the model. So there will be anyway a verification of this kind of inputs. If you change it, there will be a moment in which we will freeze data. We cannot allow ourselves to change such relevant type of data for the CBA purpose. So you will be informed when we freeze it. And in case you will discover a different kind of technical data for your project, when now the CBA has started, we will continue anyway to do the CBA assessment with the first data we received. But you will be allowed anyway to inform in the project sheet that you have, after the submission and after the CBA has started, you have better information on your project and you will be allowed to provide it. But still the CBA will be run on the data we have frozen. And for that, we can also state that. So we have to be the most transparent as possible, as much as transparent as possible. So we will say the CBA results are related to this kind of data provided by the promoter at this point in time. And if for any reason you have good reason to change the information of your project, you can provide it. Then as for PCI, ENTSO-E is only mandated to provide the technical information. So we will deliver all the package of TYNDP, all the figures, and we cannot answer for the PCI process per se. We will transparently show everything we know on the project.
Okay, another question. So we have a pre-feasibility study for a project. If the study indicates that some parts of the proposed project should be modified or additional investment should be integrated into the overall project in order to improve CBA results or transfer capacity increase, is it possible to apply for the inclusion of the modified projects to PCI list?
Here we are mixing up as
I think it's kind of the same question as
similar.
Data will be frozen at some point. If after data is frozen, you have more updating information based on this feasibility study, we can include it in the project sheets.
But it won't change the
really
CBA. Yeah, it won't change CBA results. And also, I mean, I'm afraid that they want to add some investments on top of the one assessed in the TYNDP for the PCI. Actually, I think that only projects that have been assessed in TYNDP can be candidate for PCI. So I'm not sure. Maybe we can come back to this question. You can write to Lea.
Yeah, it
needs some coordination also with the colleagues of the EC, because we don't manage the PCI, so we cannot. We wouldn't do a good service in answering you now, I think.
Okay, but I've seen your email, Yanni, so we will come back to you with written answers to your questions. This is the last question I have here in written form. Let's
see if someone raised hands.
Is someone else raising hand?
Michael?
No, I do not see any raised hand. So unless there are more questions in written, maybe let's wait just a few minutes. Okay, general questions. There are several very interesting questions here, but I don't see the question of other people.
I think it's a good idea.
We will publish the transcript with answers.
Yes, and I think it's also good to mention that this webinar is recorded, and we intend to make it available, so you can have fun and watch it back if you like.
Yeah, but it will be quicker. We just publish all the questions received with our answers.
So just a verification question: all data, included CBA NADA, needs to be submitted before November? No. So technical data and administrative data, as you will find in the project platform, needs to be submitted. So the ones that you will see in the guideline and the ones that you will actually see also in the platform will be the one requested. CBA data, I don't know if you mean CBA inputs, then we are speaking about technical data. But CBA assessment is something the ENTSO-E will perform, and for project level benefit, it's something that is not requested now. You will be informed in due time when you will be requested for further inputs. What you need to take care now is to provide all the data to satisfy administrative and technical criteria.
Okay, I do not see any more questions at the moment. So feel free to send more questions if you have some.
Yes, so we wait 1 minute more and
okay, I guess that's it. I just had this quick reminder about the workshop we have on the CBA3. So it will be published for consultation
next week, hopefully. Yes, it's we plan to publish it next week, and it's already online, the invitation to the workshop. So if you go to the ENTSO-E website, you will see that we have planned a public workshop on 8th of November from 9 to 12 with the lunch that follow this. And you can register. It's important to register because we need to take into account the seats and even the lunch after. So in the CBA 3 methodology, we intend to provide you an overview on all the indicators that have been added into the CBA you should know, if you were not in the TYNDP 2018 process, that now ENTSO-E has used the CBA2, which has been approved by the European Commission. And this year we will come out with the CBA3. Next week we will do it. We will publish it for consultation, so you can read it, review it, and eventually provide us feedbacks. And the workshop on 8th of November should enlighten you on the changes with respect to the CBA2. And I think it's useful for promoters to know which kind of indicators they can expect for their project sheets, as the CBA3 methodology will be the basis point, so the starting point for the assessment of your projects. So the benefits of your project and the cost and every aspect that relate to the cost and benefit analysis, the methodology is written in the CBA3.
For those who cannot attend physically, will there be a streaming?
We need to verify, as
okay.
we want to first incentivize the attendance physically. We really recommend to come here in Brussels. There are cakes usually after the workshop. So we can really interact and also get from you promoters, future promoter feedbacks on the work done so far.
Yeah. So if you plan on attending this workshop, maybe it's the time to also meet with us if you have questions on the application process.
Yes.
So maybe let us know in advance, and maybe we can schedule a quick meeting if we have time. Okay. Then if there are no more questions, I thank you very much for your attention. So we will publish shortly the recording of the webinar, the questions received. And if there is anything else, you have my email address here on this slide, so don't hesitate to get in touch.
Yes, thank you, Lea.
Thank you
for organizing this webinar, and hear you soon, Paul.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.